Welcome back. We've been talking about various topics in the world of quality management, and right now we're taking a look at the last in a series of videos about quality management hacks. I call them quality hacks for your exam. Now, I did mention in the last video, on the 16th of May, we're going to explore the technicalities. We're going to unravel schedule, cost, scope, risk, quality, the troublesome areas on the PMP exam that many people have issues with. I call it a tech camp. So I'd like to invite you to the PMP exam tech camp. I do not know when another one is going to be holding. I know lots of you ask, Phil, when is your next class? Whenever I put out an advert for a class, it's in your best interest to join immediately, because I do not know when the next one will hold, especially in the middle of all this crazy stuff that's happening. So when I put out exam prep classes and you don't join, you cannot be sure when the next one's going to happen, because even I don't know. So a few months ago, people were asking me, when are you going to have your class? And I said, I don't know. But then everybody was locked down and I wasn't on the road. And this is a perfect opportunity, because once I get back on the road again, training, it could be a little bit tricky to put these together. Okay, so today we're going to continue from where we left off. We're talking about quality data flows, and this one is events leading up to deliverable acceptance and transition to the customer. So the idea is that everything works out well in this last scenario. As usual, it is going to start off with the process that we all know: direct and manage project work, which is going to give us deliverables. But don't forget, we are doing our managed quality as this is happening. You guys already know this. We get deliverable. It goes to control quality. The lady on the conveyor belt, she's going to inspect it. She ends up telling us, oh, it's good. We get a verified deliverable, and that goes to validate scope. And this is where the customer checks that verified deliverable. There's a difference between verified deliverable and deliverable, like I told you in the previous sessions. Now, the customer is checking the deliverable. Will the deliverable pass the test? Let's see. Oh, it did. Well, now we have something called an accepted deliverable. Accepted means the customer has accepted it. This is not something you do in closing. You do it in monitoring and controlling. In closing, we would transition this accepted deliverable. But right now, this deliverable has been accepted and there's a stamp of approval on it, theoretically speaking. What happens after this stage? After this stage, it goes to the close project or phase process. This is where we will transition the accepted deliverable to the customer. One of my clients builds ships and vessels and barges, and whenever they have a transition of that vessel to a government entity, Coast Guard, whoever it may be, they carry out quite an elaborate event, a suite of events. There's training for the people in the operations unit who will be taking over that vessel. There is a ribbon cutting ceremony. There's a lot of fanfare. There's a lot that happens in the transition. And that's why we call it a final product, service, or result transition. It's a transition to the customer, whatever that may look like. There may need to be a lot of events happening, but ultimately the transition is different from the acceptance. And that's what I want to call out. There's a difference between acceptance and transition, and you need to remember that. The transition, the final transition, looks like the end user, the customer, whoever that product, service, or result was for. This is where it's transitioned to them. They know how to use it, they use it, and they begin, hopefully, to reap the benefits. Okay? So that's the story, really, of what happens in the world of quality. But I also want to call your attention to the fact that there is a feedback loop from here to here, from control quality to manage quality in the event of issues on the project where the deliverable is concerned. We talked about this in episode 2. So if you watched episode 1 and didn't watch 2 and you're watching 3, go back and watch 2, because you've missed something. If you're watching this and you haven't watched 1 and 2, go back to watch 1 and 2 because you'll get the full picture. As I said in previous episodes, on the PMP exam, it's not enough to just study in a linear fashion. Process 1, Process 2, Process 3, by knowledge area, or even by process group. It's not enough. Why? Because project management in the PMBOK guide is a collection of processes that may not follow rhyme or reason. They may overlap sometimes. Other times they may not. They may be sequential. Other times there might be stuff that you see happening in executing actually happening before processes in planning. We see this all the time. Acquire team or acquire resources. When does that happen? When do you acquire your team? When do you acquire your resources? Now, resources could be downstream, but when we talk about the people, you need the people to develop the plan. So when do you acquire the people? It's not a straight timeline. And I've said this before. If you're studying for your PMP exam, my friends, you need to know the non-linear interconnection points of all of these. In our next session, I will show you just one knowledge area and the interconnection points, how that knowledge area weaves in and out of other knowledge areas. And that's why when the PMI say on the PMP exam, what should you do next? For some people, it's very hard. Why? Because they've been studying linearly without thinking about the interconnection points. Don't forget, 1 is not always before 2 on every single project. Enough said. I've got 1 or 2 videos that talk about this. They talk about how process groups are not sequential, and they're truly not. Go to page 555 in your PMBOK guide. I can assure you, you will see exactly what I'm talking about, page 555. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.